Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, more confusion on the mask mandates after the Justice Department appeals a federal judge's decision to strike down the mandate. We'll have the latest developments. We'll also have a look at the war in Ukraine and what the U.S. is sending to the area as the fighting intensifies. Plus,
as well as finding employment.
We're on the front lines of the fight for criminal justice reform, with advocates pressing Congress for help. See what barriers they're looking to break down for former prison inmates. Then later,
they say this mountain can't be moved.
Gospel recording artist Winans adds 3 Grammys to her already crowded shelf. Takes on Mary Mary in a sibling musical battle with her brother by her side. And releases a new edition of her very first live recording, Believe for It.
So we got it done towards the end of 2020. So we had a couple of people socially distanced. But you know what? I was like, Lord, just let us capture your presence.
All these stories and more are coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with the nationwide confusion over mask requirements getting worse. The Department of Justice is appealing the decision made by a Florida judge earlier this week that struck down a national mask mandate on airplanes and mass transit. Dr. Anthony Fauci is criticizing the federal judge's decision, saying it is disturbing and could create a dangerous precedent. The DOJ did not ask for the mandate to remain in place while the courts make a decision.
Whether that is used now or is used later or in a future pandemic, it's essential that the CDC be able to retain this ability to do things that are going to keep Americans safe.
So now local officials are faced with whether to keep the mask requirements in place. Meanwhile, COVID deaths nationwide are dropping, but hospitalizations are growing with rising cases in about 30 states. Want to turn now to the war in Ukraine. The U.S. is promising a fresh military aid package for Ukraine as the fighting in the eastern Donbas region escalates. The refugee crisis is also intensifying. Senior national affairs correspondent Heather Sells has our story.
New satellite images show apparent mass graves near the strategic port city of Mariupol. Local officials have accused Russia of burying up to 9,000 Ukrainian civilians to conceal the slaughter taking place there. Satellite image provider Maxar Technologies released the photos that show long rows of graves near an existing cemetery. Russian President Vladimir Putin has so far failed to completely seize Mariupol. Some 2,000 Ukrainian troops and 1,000 civilians remain trapped in a sprawling steel plant there. The British Defense Ministry said Russia is likely trying to simply contain Ukrainian resistance and free up forces to be deployed elsewhere. And the Kremlin is keeping up its attacks. This is the sound of rubble falling after Russian shelling in northeastern Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Rockets struck here Thursday, setting this car on fire and hitting a school. As Russia sets up its eastern Ukraine offensive, the U.S. and its Western allies are sending more aid. President Biden announcing an extra $800 million in military assistance and $500 million in economic aid.
Putin is banking on us losing interest.
The military package includes funding for heavy artillery, ammunition, and drones. The president calls the moment a critical window as Ukraine prepares for its next round of war.
We want to do more. The president said he will be asking Congress for more.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the U.S. for the military aid. The brutal fighting has forced 5 million to flee the country, more than 10% of Ukraine's population.
5 million refugees from Ukraine, which we've said right at the start with the pace of these movements. This is the fastest growing and one of the largest refugee crises we're seeing in Europe since the Second World War.
The majority of the refugees, nearly 3 million, have fled to Poland, while others have gone to other Eastern European countries, Romania and Hungary. And many, like this woman from Mariupol, don't know what the future holds for them, saying, "We cry, we have all the feeling that there is no home. There is no idea where to go, what to do, where to run. That is very scary." Heather Sells, CBN News.
CBN senior international correspondent George Thomas is joining us now from southeastern Ukraine. George, you're about 2 hours north of Mariupol, where some brave residents of the city made it out last night. What did they tell you?
Yeah, from this one couple that made it out, they are among about 80 of them who made the dangerous trek, basically going through dozens and dozens of Russian checkpoints. They managed to get out, and we met them last night. From harrowing story. This particular couple, the husband is a pastor at a local church in Mariupol, and he said from the last 2 months, all he has been doing it has been burying people. He says when he goes out on the streets of Mariupol, there are dead people everywhere. Some that have been on the ground, that have been laying on the ground for days, and then he's been just spending his time doing ceremonies, funeral ceremonies. In fact, he told us at one point, turning to the back of his car, he said, I had to take my mother-in-law who passed away, put her on the top of my car and take her to a mass grave. And he was just so thankful, very, very fortunate and very blessed that he was alive. He was alive, and he was able to get out.
Indeed, indeed. Now, you have been traveling to the frontline areas where Ukrainian and Russian forces are actually engaged in heavy fighting. Tell us what you're seeing.
Yeah, I went further east from my location yesterday, traveled to 2 major conflict zones. When we went there, there was artillery shelling pretty much most of the time we were on the ground. I accompanied brave men and women who were going into these areas to rescue the remaining residents. One particular community, 95% of the people have escaped, but there are still some few holdouts, residents who are in those areas, constant shelling from. They have no water, no electricity, no heat for the last 2 months. And so when these guys come into town, they come with food, with water, desperate conditions. What's interesting is I met an entire family, about 36 family members living in a basement. They've been there for 2 months. And Irina was born on February 24th. That was 2 months ago. She and her mother have not left the basement since, and they don't want to.
I can imagine. Now, I know this is an important weekend in Ukraine. Tell us about it and what Christians are doing to prepare.
That's right, Ephraim. This is Easter weekend. Orthodox Christians here in Ukraine, in Russia, and in the countries of the former Soviet Union celebrate Easter this weekend. So this is Good Friday. So I wish you Good Friday from Eastern Ukraine. But the chaplains in the Ukrainian army are going to be hitting these various frontline spots. They're going to be bringing food, critical supplies, and then they're going to spend time in the trenches, being with the soldiers, encouraging them, saying a prayer over them, and just giving them a hug and giving them the good news of Jesus Christ this Easter season.
All right, George Thomas reporting for us from Ukraine. Good to see you. Thank you so much for your reporting. Please do stay safe.
Thank you.
As the war rages on, millions of Ukrainians have fled their country. CBN's Operation Blessing is providing them some much-needed assistance. And, of course, you can help Operation Blessing in its disaster relief effort. Simply call 1-800-700-7000. Let us know that you want to give to the Disaster Relief Fund. You can make that note in the memo line of your check. You can also write us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. The zip code is 23463. And you can text us as well, OB Crisis, to 71777, or visit our website, cbn.com and ob.org. Anything you're able to do is, of course, greatly appreciated. Turning out to other news, in the midst of the growing hostilities happening in Israel, a new defensive laser system has successfully been tested that experts say will enhance border protection. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is on this story.
It's called Magen Or in Hebrew, or light shield. It marks the first time that a high-power Israeli-made laser system successfully intercepted various targets, constituting a breakthrough on a global scale. This system is a joint project of the Defense Ministry and Rafael, a defense technology company.
The successful tests complete key milestones in the development of what will be the first operational high-energy laser system in the world. We have introduced cutting-edge technologies to intercept a variety of threats in complex scenarios.
We were able to intercept a variety of threats, such as mortars, rockets, and drones.
The new system will be integrated with the Iron Dome anti-rocket system.
which has been effective against rockets fired across the border shared with the Gaza Strip. Last year, during Israel's 11-day war with Gaza, terror groups fired more than 3,400 rockets at Israel. More than 90% heading for populated areas were intercepted by Iron Dome. The interceptors cost up to $100,000 each. The laser system will be more cost-effective. In addition to the ground-based system, the IDF is also developing a platform-mounted laser system to defend troops in the field, and an aerial laser system to intercept threats from the air and to defend large areas on the ground.
The success of the high-power lasers live-fire test is a significant accomplishment for the security of the people of Israel.
Brigadier General Yaniv Rotem says the tests are just the beginning of their plan to position multiple laser transmitters along Israel's borders during the next decade. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Advocates for criminal reform are looking to Congress to help former inmates hit with obstacles when re-entering society. That story is coming up next, but first, let's go to Israel, where our Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has a look at what's coming up on Jerusalem Dateline. Julie.
Thank you, Ephraim. This week on Jerusalem Dateline, we'll take a look at what's behind the latest upsurge in violence on the Temple Mount and rocket fire from the Gaza Strip. We'll also see a cutting-edge laser system that will enable Israel to better defend its borders. And we have an interview with Israeli-American actress Noah Tishby, who's just been appointed as Israel's first envoy to combat anti-Semitism. You can see more news from the Middle East on Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern or the CBN News app. Stay with us. Newswatch will be back after this break.
Congress passed landmark criminal justice reform in 2018. Follow-up legislation is facing strong opposition in this election year, but congressional gridlock isn't stopping reform advocates. This month, they are highlighting the challenges former inmates face trying to rejoin society, with an aim at removing some of those obstacles. CBN Charlene Aaron reports.
For more than 40 years, the Christian ministry Prison Fellowship has worked on behalf of justice reform, focusing on prisoners, former prisoners, and their families. In 2017, he began the nationwide initiative known as Second Chance Month to help celebrate those who have paid their debt to society. For Sammy Perez, life was hard growing up. He spent nearly 10 years of his life behind bars, starting when he was just a child.
I quickly took to the streets and started to follow men who weren't the best example and started to get into trouble at a very early age. And unfortunately was first arrested when I was around 8 years old. And that cycle just continued.
During his last time in jail, an encounter with God transformed Perez's life. Despite that change, he faced many hurdles after his release.
I actually struggled with a number of different things. I struggled with finding housing as well as finding employment. I've actually applied for a number of different jobs and had great conversations with hiring managers about the position and about the role. And I've actually even been given and offered a position and accepted that position, only to find out later that I was actually denied because of my criminal record.
That's one problem Prison Fellowship seeks to eliminate with the recognition of Second Chance Month.
We need to celebrate the second chances that all of us have received and extend those to others, specifically men and women with a criminal record.
According to the ministry, 1 in 3 Americans have some form of criminal record and face about 44,000 legal barriers to success once they're out. By partnering with other faith groups to celebrate second chances, Prison Fellowship hopes to eliminate some of those barriers.
Whether that's having a culture of welcome in your church or at your table, we want to channel this into real solutions, right? Not just recognition. And so we work every day on our public policy team to identify barriers that are unnecessary and that have significant impact on men and women's success on the outside, and to remove those.
Presidents Biden and Trump have acknowledged the effort, reaffirming the importance of helping people formerly incarcerated to re-enter society. It's recognition Prison Fellowship applauds, while admitting more needs to be done.
What we're most concerned about are those things that keep people from the essentials: housing, jobs, education, family flourishing, things that many of us take for granted in our day-to-day life, and that we want to ensure others have access to so that they can have the healthy lives that we're trying to teach them to have.
Grateful for his chance, Perez now serves on staff at Prison Fellowship, recruiting volunteers for the ministry's advocacy work so others can follow his path.
I'm truly humbled, right, by the second chance that I have received, not only from our Lord and Savior, right, and saving my soul, and giving me a new heart and a new life, but obviously for the people who have given me a second chance.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Still ahead, we are sitting down with Grammy Award-winning recording artist CeCe Winans. She's talking about her first live album, Believe for It, as she now has 15 Grammy Awards, 3 of them for that project. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. CeCe Winans began the year with 12 Grammy Awards on the shelf, and a few weeks ago, she added 3 more. Do the math, that's 15 Grammy wins for the great gospel singer. The latest wins were for Best Gospel Performance, Best Contemporary Christian Performance, and Best Gospel Album. She sat down with us in Studio 5 to talk about that album, Believe for It.
They say this mountain can't be moved. They say these chains will never break, but they don't know you like we do. There is power in your name.
23 Dove Awards, 15 Stellar Awards, 12 Grammy Awards, and 17 million purchases of your music. When you hear that rattled off, what do you think?
Wow, you know, I've been doing this a long time, but it's still wow.
There is power in your name. So much power in your name.
Now, this is your first live worship project?
First live project, period.
Wow.
No. I like the studio where you can just do it over and over again.
Okay.
God, we believe for it.
And you know, the funny thing is, I finally do my live record, right? And we had planned to do it at the beginning of 2020. Then the pandemic happened.
Wow.
So I'm going to do a live record with no people? I'm like,
God, we believe no matter what, there is power in your name.
So we got it done towards the end of 2020. So we had a couple of people socially distant. But you know what? I was like, Lord, just let us capture your presence. Let us capture your presence. And he was so gracious to allow us to do that.
God, we believe for it. From the impossible, we'll see a miracle. God, we believe. God, we believe for it.
Now, I know the public has already been able to hear Never Lost a Battle, which I love. They've also been able to hear Believe for It. So we've got those 2. We're waiting for the rest. Which one are you looking most forward to us hearing?
I'm just interested for people to hear the totality, really, of the song.
Okay.
Because even Never Lost and Believe for It, it's where it goes in the whole experience. You know, because, you know, I am known for singing songs in between songs that the Lord just puts on my heart more than singing a song, you know. Even Believe for It, that tag on the end was not a part of the song. You know, you said it, I believe it, it's done. You said it, I believe it, it's done. I just feel like we got to get that into our spirits and into our hearts. To continue to heal from what we've already been through, you know, in 2020. A lot of people are broken. They feel like giving up. They lost loved ones. They're hurting, you know, and we don't have an option not to believe. We got to believe if we're going to see God move in the way we need him to move.
Just because you said, just because you said it, move the immovable, break me
CeCe also was part of the Easter versus battle with Mary with her brother, B.B. Winans, alongside her. Stay with us. Your Friday Faithful is coming up next.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and I want to leave you with this word. When counting all of the things that God can do, there are at least two things that God cannot do. Here they are. He can't lie and he can't fail. Now that is indeed an impressive track record. It's a resume you can certainly trust. With that word, I encourage you to make this a fabulous Friday and be sure to have yourself a wonderful weekend, trusting and knowing that God cannot fail and he cannot lie. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online, cbnnews.com. And of course, you can download the CBN News app to watch our shows on demand. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. The email at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. Just drop us a line and let us know. You can also reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you back here Monday.